Good morning, everyone. My name is Judy Blake, and I am the Leadership and Advocacy Coordinator for Family to Family Network. We are here in Houston, Texas, where it is a beautiful day, a little bit chilly, which is perfect for me, much better than 100 degrees and 99% humidity. So I'm a happy camper. This is our session of Leadership and Advocacy. It is our spring session, and we are so happy that you have joined us. What we are going to do first is take a quick group picture. And let me do that real quick, and it will be posted. So let's do this. Everyone say, oh, we're going to let Jennifer in. Hold on. The more the merrier.
We got to get Nedra back here.
Yep, Nedra. Come on, Nedra. Oh, and here's Annie Lee. Okay. Okay. So there's Nedra. Okay. Hi, Annie. Okay. Good morning, Jennifer. So we're going to take a quick picture. So hold on one quick second. 1, 2, 3. There we go. So what I will do is after the presentations, you will be forwarded the slides. So it's really important just to listen to what each presenter says. You can certainly take notes, but just know that you are going to be receiving the slides after. And we will hold questions until the end of Michelle's presentation. And she will be presenting for about 45 minutes or so. And then we're going to have a chance for questions and answers. Please remember that this is a safe space. No question is silly. And I promise you, if you're thinking it, I'm probably thinking it too, or someone else is. And if you're uncomfortable asking a question, just send me a private message in the chat box, and I'll just say, hey, one of our participants wants to know this. But please know that you can ask anything, and it's really important that you get your questions answered. The presenter today talking about, oh my gosh, talk about a confusing topic, SSI and SSDI. So I was fortunate enough to meet Michelle Howard about 5 years ago. And I got to tell you, she is one cool gal. She really is. Not only is she really bright and gets SSI and SSDI, which I'm so impressed with, but she's actually also the executive director of an amazing program called Summer House Houston. And I know firsthand because my 26-year-old son, Ryan, has used their services, and then the pandemic hit. But she is really devoted, dedicated, and wants integrated, meaningful employment for people with disabilities. And for those of you who know me, I have always said that regardless of disability, everyone in this world can do something. It's up to all of us to come together as a community, as a society, to make those accommodations and make sure that people are included in a meaningful way. And Michelle Howard, you make it happen. You definitely make it happen. So thank you for joining us. Oh, I need to make you a co-host so that you can share your screen. Yay!
Good morning, everyone. I appreciate everyone up here, up this morning to talk about such an exciting topic.
Yay!
Yay. Social Security and work incentives and SSDI, and we're going to cover it all. So let me see if I can share my screen.
And if you, for some reason, everyone has these unstable internet connections these days, if for some reason you get knocked off, don't worry, just log back on and I'll let you right back in. So don't you worry.
All right, so can people see my screen?
We sure can, thank you.
Yay, all right. So we're going to talk about understanding Social Security benefits today and work incentives. And as Judy said, I'm the CEO of Summer House Houston. I do need to preface this that we do not provide legal assistance or advice. This is just information that I have learned over the years that I like to share with people. Judy talked about this a little bit, and I think it's really important for us to just really spend just a couple seconds here on why is work so important. We all work because of financial security, and sometimes we get personal challenges and growth. But one of the things that is so important is just the development of friends and relationships. And when work is not a part of a person with a disability's life, they miss out on so much. I mean, think about when you're in a group of, friends, or you meet people for the first time. One of the first things that people ask is, what do you do? And if we take that away from people with disabilities and they don't have any way to answer that, we really have not included them very much. And so work is critically important. But one of the things that we find is that people are very scared of working because they're afraid of losing their benefits. And there are so many myths around that hopefully I can clear some of those up today for you. Again, it's all about working real jobs. These are all jobs that we have assisted people into getting at Summer House. We have David that works at St. Andrews, and Allison that works at Harold's, and Elizabeth that works at Texas Southern University, and Erica that works at Bale, and Patrick that works at the Boral Agency. David also has a second job at Yale Street Doghouse, and these are really critically important to them. But at every point, at some point, their parents have gone, "Oh my gosh, what about their benefits? I don't want to lose their Medicaid. I don't want to lose their SSI." And so we've got to make sure that we're able to support people through that. I always say that if you got a group of people, really smart people in a room together, and you ask them to come up with the most convoluted, complex system that they could come up with, they couldn't even come up with SSI, with Social Security. It really is that bad. And I always ask people, if you call Social Security and you have a question and you talk to two different people, how many answers do you get? Well, usually 4 or 5, right? um, a lot of times they don't even know what's going on. So it is scary for parents, and it's very scary for individuals to think about losing those benefits that they were so hard to get. So let's just do a quick overview today of so that you feel a little bit more comfortable with the different types of benefits, and that more than that, you feel comfortable going, yes, people can work by having these benefits. We just have to be smarter than the benefits, and we can do that. As we go through these slides today, you're going to notice that some of them are blue and some of them are green. There's a blue bar or a green bar at the bottom um, of each slide. Every time that it's blue, I am talking about SSI. And
Oh,
every time that it's green, I'm going to be talking about SSDI. And we'll talk about what those are in just a minute. If there is both at the bottom, then I'm talking about both. And this will help you later as you go back through the slides. So hopefully, Judy, will get them to you in color, right? Yes. Okay, good. All right.
They will
So
be
let's,
getting all of the slides in color. Yes, absolutely.
perfect.
And they will be
Perfect.
emailed next week.
Perfect. All right. So let's start with talking about supplemental security income. This is SSI. It's also called Title 16. These two programs are very, very different. Okay, so it's really important to understand that one doesn't have anything to do with the other. And in fact, when you think about the Social Security office, you can think about it as, both these programs are housed in the Social Security office, but half the house deals with SSI and half the house deals with SSDI, and they really don't talk. Okay, so an SSI caseworker may not have any idea what an SSDI caseworker does, and vice versa. SSI is supplemental security income. It makes the assumption that people are going to work, and this is supposed to supplement their income. It's from general tax revenues. It's a low income program. Okay. Eligibility is based on documented medical disability as well as income and resource limits. You can only make so much, you can only have so much in order to be able to keep SSI. The maximum amount that you're going to get each month if you're on SSI in 2021 is $794. Nobody's going to get rich on SSI, right? I mean, have you tried to live on 794 a month? It's not going to work. So it really is a supplemental security income. So hopefully that people work, and then this supplements them if they're not earning enough money. It is a program that keeps people poor. Okay. You can only have $2,000 in resources or $3,000 for couples. You go over those resources, you can get kicked off the SSI rolls. And so it's very difficult to save money. Now, there are some other ways that I'm sure that we'll talk about and you'll talk about in this class, like the ABLE and Special Needs Trust and that sort of stuff. But in general, it's a program that keeps people poor. Again, nobody's getting rich off this, but the golden ticket of why people need SSI so much is that once you get SSI in Texas, you are automatically eligible for Medicaid. And many people need Medicaid as their health insurance. So as we're talking about how to keep these benefits, I don't worry so much about that 794. I worry about people's Medicaid. And we got to make sure that there's a way to work and keep that Medicaid until somebody doesn't need it any longer. SSDI, totally different program, okay? Even though people can get both, they can be on either one. But Social Security disability insurance really it's out of the same disability trust fund that we're all going to get when we retire. It's funded through those FICA taxes, right? That stuff they take out of your paycheck every single time. SSDI is part of a larger program for old age, survivor, and disability insurance. And the eligibility is determined by the number of what they call work quarters, or the amount you pay in. So think about it in terms of your own retirement for just a minute, that you pay in a certain amount, right? And at the end, when you turn 65 or 67 or 90 or whatever, you hope to get some of that back. So that's the same fund that SSDI is in. Now, why we talk about it with people with disabilities is that there is a caveat in the SSDI that says if a person with a disability has a parent who is deceased, retired, or disabled, that they can draw from their Social Security disability insurance. And so sometimes people are on SSDI as opposed to SSI because of having that parent, again, that is deceased, retired, or disabled. It is also possible that a person can draw on their own account. And so let's say somebody after high school gets a job and they're working along for several quarters and they're doing pretty well. They could actually get able to draw down SSDI on their own account pretty early in life because they have a disability. There are no resource limits here. It's not a program to keep people poor like SSI is. And the health insurance associated with it is Medicare. Just like you and I are probably going to get when we all get really, really old, we're going to have SSDI and we're going to have Medicare. All right. Let's talk for just a minute about Medicaid and Medicare. Medicaid, again, it's associated with SSI, right? It's a low income program, jointly funded federal state health insurance program for low income and needy people. It covers children, the aged, blind, or people with disabilities who receive federally assisted income maintenance payments. Coverage can begin immediately, which is always good. So as soon as you get SSI, you're eligible for Medicaid. And one of the most important things that we're going to talk about, I'm going to say it now, but we're going to talk about it later, is that Medicaid coverage can continue even if a recipient loses their SSI. There are ways to do that. So as we said, the Medicaid piece is so important for people. So we got to figure out how it is that people can work and keep that Medicaid. And actually, it's a lot easier than what you'd think. Medicare, again, it's the country's health insurance program for people 65 and older. Same thing that you and I are going to get. And there's different parts of Medicare. Basically, there's hospital, which is Part A, there's Part B, there's Part C, there's Part D, which is drug benefits. Some of them you get free, some of them you have to buy into, but it's the same program that you or I going to get. Now, interestingly enough, there's a 24-month waiting period from the time of eligibility. So if a person gets SSDI instead of SSI, they're going to have to wait 24 months in order to get Medicare, which could be a problem. Let's talk about, I said that there's not much that SSI and SSDI share, right? Even though they're in the kind of the same Social Security Administration house, they're very, very different. The other thing that they do share, though, is how they define disability. For both programs, the definition of disability for SSI and SSDI is the same, all right? And it's different than what you would think. If you have a son or daughter that has gone through school, maybe in special education, they have an IEP, and you're just going to assume that they're eligible for some type of SSI or SSDI, that's a pretty big assumption, because disability under Social Security is only based on a person's inability to work. That's the only thing they really care about. Now, for a child, it's a little bit different. The disability must be severe compared with the abilities of their peers. But for an adult, it's all about whether somebody can make substantial gainful activity or not, substantial gainful employment. And right now, that's 1310 per month in 2021. So if a person can earn 1310 a month, or if they've earned 1310 a month, they are not eligible for SSI or SSDI, regardless of their disability. If they have not earned that, or if you perceive that they can't earn that, or at least without support, then they may be eligible for SSI or SSDI. Okay. Another word for work gainful enough is to support yourself. So it's saying you cannot return to work before your disability or your adjust to other work. It's important to remember that the definition of disability means that it has to be, it's going to be expected to last either, for at least 12 months or result in death. You can't break your arm and go in and try to get SSI or SSDI. They're going to laugh at you. The other really important thing to remember is that regardless, there's differences between being on these programs as a child and being on these programs as an adult. And they say that cutoff is 18. So we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. But it's real important to remember there are child benefits for kids with disabilities, and then there are adult benefits with kids for adults with disabilities. Other just kind of basic definitions here. You don't need to memorize all this, but it's just important for you to know that Social Security for both SSI and SSDI, they talk in terms of earned income and unearned income, and they treat both very differently in all of their complicated formulas. Okay, so earned income is the wages, the money that you make, money from self-employment, payments even from if you're in a sheltered workshop. Okay, that's earned income. There's unearned income, such as private pensions and annuities, workers' compensation, unemployment compensation, prizes and awards, gifts, inheritance, that sort of thing. And you don't need to really know this whole list, but just understand that Social Security treats earned income differently than they treat unearned income in all of their formulas. All right, we're going to go to the blue side of the house now for just a little while, and we're just going to talk about SSI. Remember, SSI is Supplemental Security Insurance, also called Title 16, and it is it's a low income program. Okay, if you are under 18, they're looking at parents' income, parents' resources, the number in the family. Okay. If you're over 18, they're only looking at your income, earned and unearned, your own resources. It is really important to reapply at age 18. So if you applied for your child under 18, okay, and regardless of whether they got it or not, you want to reapply or be reevaluated at 18. Now, it's not like Social Security is necessarily going to call and remind you to do this. So you definitely want to um, make that appointment. You want to make the appointment in the month after someone turns 18. Don't do it in the month they turn 18 or you'll run into problems. So the month after somebody turns 18, you need to go in for a redetermination. When someone is under 18, um, a lot of times they don't get it because their parents' income is too high. And so once they turn 18 and it's based on their own income, they do get it. But the reverse can also happen. Sometimes a child can be on it at under 18 because their parents' resources and income were low. But then when they go in and they reapply at 18, they say, you're not disabled enough, you can work. And they don't get it. And so just remember that, let's say we have a person who uses a wheelchair and they had accommodations or some kind of special plan when they were in school. But they did really well in school and they want to go into computer programming. So even though they had SSI as a child, when they go in when they're 18, Social Security may go, wait a minute, yeah, you're still using your wheelchair, but you did well in school and you can go to college and you can work on computers. Therefore, you're no longer disabled in the eyes of Social Security, even though clearly they still have a disability. All right. We got dinging all over the place here. Again, that eligibility for SSI at 18 is based on somebody's own income. Okay. Again, the duration, the disability has to be last at least 12 months or be lifelong. Somebody has to have less than $2,000 in resources and probably not be able to earn that SGA, which is the 1310. And you have to have medical proof and documents. I always tell people when you're going in and applying, whether it's for a child or for an adult, you got to take all those documents with the letters after their last name. They don't really care about the IEP. They don't really care about, different types of documents. They want things from doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, OTs, PTs, people with letters with their last name. So you're going to take those in. Now, forget everything I just said for a minute because that was SSI. We're going to move to SSDI for a minute, okay? To qualify for Social Security disability benefits yourself, you must have at least worked and paid into Social Security, and you must have the medical condition that meets Social Security's definition of disability. And so what that means is that if a person who maybe is 18 and they're on SSI, and then they start working. So long about maybe when they're 20 or 21, they've paid in enough quarters, they could start drawing down on their own Social Security disability themselves. All right. So that's one way that a person with a disability gets SSDI. The other way is what we talked about, that if a person has a parent who is disabled, retired, or deceased, did I say that right? Retired, disabled, or deceased, they may be able to start collecting off of their SSDI payment, which can be a little or which can be a lot because it all depends on how much a person paid in. Okay. So again, remember two different programs. How much are you going to get on each program? SSI, it is always that federal benefit rate, and right now it's at $7.94. It goes up a couple bucks every year, it seems like, but it's certainly not getting anybody rich. If a person lives with their parents and they're not paying any kind of room or board or fair share, that's cut to $529. So if you are only receiving the $529, or if your child is only receiving the $529 and they're over 18, it's because you're not charging them rent. And I know what happens, a person goes in when they're 18 and they're like, okay, I need to be redetermined now and I want to see if I'm eligible for SSI. And the caseworker starts asking questions. They go, so, parent, does Johnny live with you? And the parent's like, yes, of course Johnny lives with me. Do you take care of Johnny? Yes, I love Johnny very, very much. Bam, you're only getting 529. That's the way it works because they're assuming that you are taking care of Johnny. What you need to do is go in and say, yes, Johnny lives with me, but Johnny's 18 now and he's an adult. And so we expect him to pay his fair share. And we have this room and board agreement here, which I can send you a copy of, or Judy can send you a copy of, that outlines what we're going to charge him each month for rent or his fair share of expenses. And then all of a sudden, he will be back up to that 794. So it's just real important to remember that. And if you meet someone or you yourself, your child is once they turn 18 is only getting the 529, it's because you don't have a room and board or a fair share agreement, and you need to get one so that you get the full amount. How much to expect on SSDI? Well, that's a mystery. It's a very complicated formula depending on how much the person or their parents have paid in. We used to always get these in the mail, and I don't think they come anymore, but did you used to get something for Social Security that we'd like predict how much you're going to get when you
Yes,
retire? Yeah.
absolutely. Yep.
So, and it's never the same. From mine is going to be different from yours, is going to be different from somebody else's. And it's because it all depends on how much you paid in. So if somebody had a really good job and made a lot of money, they're going to get more SSDI, or they're going to get more Social Security back than somebody who maybe worked part-time throughout their life. So it can be all over the place. The average payment in 2020 was $1,258 per month, but I've seen it as little as $50 or $100. I've seen it as much as a couple $1,000, and it really depends on how much somebody has paid in. And again, why is this important? Because if a person is disabled and their parent is disabled, retired, or deceased, they can start drawing off their parent's account. It does not hurt what the parents get. Okay, that's important to remember. Um, so let's say you have you have an adult child with disability who's 25. They've been getting SSI and they've been working a little bit, and then all of a sudden you retire. Well, Social Security is going to go, we need to see if you're eligible for SSDI first. Okay. And so they're going to look to see how much you paid in. The base rate for benefits for an adult child with disability is 50% of what the parents would get. If the parent is deceased, it's 75%. Okay. So, real important to remember. You probably all heard the stories of, somebody having multiple wives and then dying, not at the same time, but multiple wives over the period of their life, and then they die. Each wife, if they were married for at least 10 years, can start collecting off that person's Social Security. And again, though, it doesn't hurt the first wife and it doesn't hurt the last wife. It's just everybody can claim off of that person's Social Security. All right. What can the money be used for? Well, SSI payments, you got to think food, clothing, and shelter. You do need to keep receipts. You could be audited. Supplemental security insurance is just for things like food, shelter, clothing, medication, probably programs and services, but you can't go to Disneyland on it. Okay. It doesn't work that way. SSDI payments don't have to be accounted for because again, they're the same payments that you or I are going to receive when we get retired, so you don't have to keep receipts. So remember, SSI you do, SSDI you don't have to keep the receipts. For both SSI and SSDI, if you go in and you apply and you're not found eligible, always appeal. Okay? Only about 30% of initial claims are actually approved. Even though later on that goes up to, once you appeal it a couple times, it goes up to, 70 or 80%. Important to realize that the local offices do the initial review, but then they send it off to these people in Austin called the Disability Determination Services for medical review. I don't know who these people are. I always think of them as like Oz behind the curtain, and they're making all these decisions, right? About whether your son or daughter or whether you are eligible for SSI or SSDI. The biggest reasons for denials is incomplete or missing forms or forms not returned within a 15-day window. So what happens a lot of times is that you go in, you give everything to your local office, they ship it up to the people behind the curtain in Austin, and those people behind the curtain in Austin go, "Oh, we need this one form." And so they send it to you. But maybe you were on vacation, or maybe you didn't get your mail for a little while. Well, what happens is if they don't get that form back within 15 days, bam, you're not approved. That's all there is to it. You got to start over. So it's really important when you're applying to check your mail. I've also seen that sometimes they call you, sometimes they email you, and sometimes they send you stuff in the mail. And so, and you never know what they're going to do. So again, it's a really important to check. A lot of times people can't get a hold of us because maybe you gave them your home line and you no longer have a home line, you're just using your cell phone, or maybe your number's changed. And if they can't get a hold of you, again, they're going to deny it. If your initial claim is denied, the next step in Texas is to seek a reconsideration. Basically, you can do that online. I s- don't s- I suggest that you don't run out and hire an attorney just yet, because so many of those initial claims are denied, and usually it's because they're just missing a form, right? So if your request for reconsideration is denied, then the next step is to ask for a hearing. Basically, again, it's to appeal. You can do that again online. The appeals must be made within 60 days. So if you do it on day 61, it doesn't count and you're going to have to start over. I always suggest to people that if you go through the redetermination and then you try one appeal and you're still not getting anywhere, then is the time probably to contact a lawyer or get some assistance through disability rights or through a free legal assistant or just by hiring an attorney. Now, there's something that happens that you have to be careful about. Now, there are some new rules around this that I've just learned about, that it's not supposed to be as bad as it used to be, but I still don't trust it. So I want to tell you about this. Um, if you apply,
Michelle,
yes,
can I ask
yes,
one quick question? Because this is really important to what you just said. Appeals must be made within 60 days, 60 calendar days, 60 business days,
I believe it's calendar days.
calendar days. Okay, so
Calendar days.
that's, yeah, okay, so literally 2 months. Okay.
Too much.
And that was
Yes.
a great question somebody asked. Thank you.
Good. Good. Um, if where was I at? Okay. Oh, so what happens sometime, let's say that you apply in January for Social Security benefits, right? And or SSI. And you get, first of all, you get turned down. And so you do a reconsideration. And then, within 60 days, so maybe it's March or April, and you do an appeal. And then along about August, they actually say, yes, you're eligible. Okay, well, that sounds great. So then you get this great big check because they go back to when you first applied, which is January. So now you got this great big check, and you're not sure what to do with it. And the problem is that if you go and put it in the bank, all of a sudden you have more than $2,000 of resources and you can lose your SSI, which is a problem, right? Now, basically, the rule used to be that you had 30 days to spend it. So basically, you ran out with this check and you cashed it real quick and you bought all the toilet paper from Costco and you bought yourself a new bed and you stocked up your freezer and you got it back down so that you had less than $2,000 in your savings account so you wouldn't lose your SSI. That's the way it used to be. I recently heard now, but I don't trust this yet. But what they're saying now is the rule is that you actually have 9 months to spend it, is the new rule. I would still spend it within 30 days because I always worries me that new rules don't ever get down to the Social Security offices for like years. But I have heard that that is supposed to get better and that somebody's supposed to have the 9 months to spend it versus the 30 days. But regardless, you don't want to get more than that $2,000 in your savings account or any account. All right, so we've learned the difference between SSI and SSDI. We've learned the difference between Medicaid and Medicare, right? Let's talk about now what we started talking about was how does working impact all of this? We've said working is incredibly important for people. And so there are many, many parents out there and many individuals that go, whoa, I want to work, but I fought so hard to get my benefits. I had to appeal 3 times. I had to do all this stuff. And now you're going to want me to do something that could risk getting rid of them. And that's really scary for individuals and it's really scary for families. But the system, once you understand it, isn't that scary because it's pretty hard to lose your benefits as long as you're staying on top of it. So let's stay on the blue side of the house for a minute and talk about SSI, Supplemental Security Income. I can say without a doubt that you are always, always, always better off working. Remember what it is, supplemental security income. They want you to work. And even though the formula is a bit more complicated than this, for every $2 you earn, they're only going to count one of those dollars. So you're always better off. However, if you start working and you're on SSI, you still need to watch those resource limitations. You can't have more than $2,000 in the bank. Okay. Your SSI checks are going to go up and down each month based on what you earned the couple months before that. And we're going to talk about the formula in the next slide in just a minute. So let me move to that. This is a real simplistic way to look at this, but why it's so important. So let's say a person was on SSI and all they were getting was that 794, which is the 2021 federal benefit rate, right? All right. So they go to work and they start making $1,200 a month. They run through this formula. They take 65 off for earned income, 20 off for unearned income, and then they divide it in half. Don't ask me why they do all this. This is just the way they do it, right? So they do it. And so then they're saying that your countable income, even though what you made was $1,200, is $557.50. So hopefully you can see where that came from. It was taking their paycheck, taking away the 65, taking away the 20, and cutting it in half. So then what we're going to do is look at that federal benefit rate, which is $794 a month, and you're going to subtract the total countable income. So the amount of the SSI check that used to be $794 is now $236.50. And you can go, oh no, that's terrible. But wait a minute. Before you started working, you only had $794. Once you're working, you get your paycheck and the smaller SSI check. So that's $1,436.50. That's a lot more money. That's a lot more money in people's pocket. So again, no matter what, you are always better off working on SSI. And it takes a long time, and I don't know the exact number to my screen like you can see this, sorry. Um, it takes a long time to get that to zero. Okay. If it gets to zero, though, your SSI check gets to zero, there's some things that you got to do in order to protect your Medicaid. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. All right. There are some deals, some kind of sweet deals that make this even better for SSI, and they are called work incentives. Okay. So in that formula, if you have something that's called an impairment related work expense, something that the person needs to work that is because of their disability. So let's say they need specialized transportation to work, right? Or they need medication to stay on to work, or they need a specific kind of wheelchair so they can get in and out of work. Okay. Those are things that are called impairment related work expenses. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to keep the receipts for those things. And then when you turn in your pay stubs every month, which we will talk about in a few minutes to Social Security, you're going to also turn in the receipts for those impairment related work expenses. You're going to write really big on them, impairment related work expense, so that SSI will know that they're supposed to count that. So if we go back to our formula, basically after before they cut it in half, this 15, 11, 15 right here, basically you would subtract any IRWIs. So let's say that you had $200 in expenses that were impairment related work expenses. Half of that would be 100. So basically you would get $100 more, or your accountable income would be $100 less. And so you would get $100 more in your SSI check. You would have 336.50 instead of the 236.50. Another work incentive, and again, these are trying to get people to go to work that are an SSI. They're trying to sweeten the deal for you. This next one is so important. And it is probably the next best thing since sliced bread. I mean, seriously. Student earned income exclusion. A student who is under 22, who is regularly attending school, college, or university, or a vocational technical training, can have earnings that are not counted towards their SSI. So a person can try out work while they're still in school. They can earn up to $19.30 per month or 7,770 per year, and it doesn't ever even affect their SSI. But you got to remember when you turn in the receipts to write student earned income exclusion on them, so that the SSI and SSDI people will know, or SSI people will know. But this is a wonderful way. I always suggest that, disability or not, that every student needs a summer job, or a little job after school or something. And this is just such a great way to try out work and get some experience without it even impacting your SSI at all. There are some other work incentives that we don't have lots of time to go into today. There's something called a PASS that it's a plan for achieving self-support. This is a fairly complicated one where the IRWIs and the student earned income exclusion, you can just do yourself. You just turn in the receipts and you write this stuff on your pay stubs. A pass is a little bit more complicated, and I always suggest that a person get some assistance for writing one. But basically, if a person wants to save money, so they want to be able to have more than that $2,000 of resources, they want to be able to save money for a future vocational goal. So let's say they want to go to college, or they want to buy their own business, or they want to do something. They need a car so they can go to a better job. There's a way, once you write a pass, to be able to save money so that you can save more than that $2,000. And so you can eventually meet that goal. There's a couple different ways to plan for passes. There are people out there called CWICs, Community Work Incentive Specialist, that can help with this. The local CWICs in Houston are at the Center for Independent Living. They have several of them. There's also now an online program, an online pass program that I've heard is pretty good. And if you just fill in all the blanks, you can take it to your Social Security office for approval. But again, you got to remember a pass needs approval, where a student earned income or impairment related work expense doesn't need prior approval. All right. Another one, and again, if you don't remember anything I say today, please remember this one. Remember I said that when that money gets to zero, when your SSI check gets to zero because you've earned so much, right? You're at risk of losing your Medicaid. There's a lot of people that really need their Medicaid for medical expenses, for medication. Maybe they have a good job, but the job is not offering benefits yet. They need that Medicaid. There is something called 1619B. Basically, it's a letter that you write to Social Security, and you say, "Dear Social Security people, I have a job and I'm doing really well, and my SSI check is getting pretty close to 0, but I still need my Medicaid because I've got medical expenses. So put me on 1619B. That's all it takes. And all of a sudden you can earn up to $34,000 annually and keep your Medicaid. That's huge, right? That's huge. And so it's a simple letter. Now, Social Security doesn't always tell you this, but it's a simple letter. It's a little box that they click in their system to keep you on 1619B so that you can earn up to the 34,000 annually. There's also something called Medicaid buy-in that if you're working and you want to keep your Medicaid, you can actually buy into Medicaid. So again, just remember that there are ways to keep Medicaid. There are ways to make sure that you are, getting as much Social Security or SSI as you can. And there are different ways out there. So two most important things that you're going to hear about SSI is SSI, you're always better off working. And yes, you can keep your Medicaid. You just have to get a box clicked in the system. Real important stuff. All right. Let's forget everything I just said for a minute and move over to Social Security disability. Remember, maybe you have a child on this, maybe you have an adult child on this because their parent is retired, deceased, or disabled. Or perhaps the person has worked enough themselves after school to be able to collect on their own. Social Security disability handles working totally different than SSI. There's none of this up and down. There's none of these complicated formulas. It's an all or nothing program. You either get your check or you don't. Okay. But there are work incentives available, and Medicare can extend 93 months once, even if you get rid of your benefits. So let's talk about this for a minute. I'm on SSDI because my mom retired and I'm collecting off of her account. Okay. I want to go to work. So let's say I get about, I don't know, 1,000 a month off of her account. So I'm getting this 1,000 a month of SSDI. I'm not getting any SSI anymore because my 1,000 a month is too much to get SSI. So I'm getting SSDI 1,000 a month and I want to go to work. My first 9 months don't count at all. Basically, all they do is anytime that I earn over 940, they check a little box in the system. But I'm still keeping my full paycheck and I'm still keeping my full $1,000 SSDI check. Okay. Now, this doesn't have to be 9 months in a row. It can be 9 months over a 60-month period. But once 9 boxes get checked, so 9 months I've earned over 940, the system goes, let's stop and look at this for a minute, okay? They give me a grace period. So for 3 more months, I can get my entire paycheck and my entire paycheck and my entire SSDI check. But then there's this substantial gainful activity. Remember we talked about that earlier? So every month after that, after my trial work, after my grace period, any month that I earn over substantial gainful activity, which right now is $13.10 a month, I don't get my check. And any time I earn under it, I do get my check. And that goes on for 36 months. So maybe January, February, March, I didn't make that much money, and so I got I kept my paycheck and I got my $1,000 SSDI check. And then all of a sudden in April and May, I started working quite a bit more hours. I had some overtime. And so I went over that 1310 so that I don't get my check for those couple months. But then business dropped off again. And so I'm earning under 1310. So I get it. So you got 3 years to kind of figure that out, that you're getting your check if you're earning under 1310, you're not getting your check if you're earning over 1310. So think about this for a minute. I've had 9 months of trial work plus 3 months of a grace period. So that's 1 year that I am still getting my full check no matter what I earn. And then I've got 3 more years of getting my check anytime I earn under 1310 a month. That is 4 years to be able to kind of decide whether I can work or not. That's a long time. You kind of know after 4 years of thinking, yeah, working full time, I can do this. This is great. I want to go off my benefits. Or, I've had some health issues. This is pretty hard. I think I only want to work part time. So after that 4 years, you kind of have to decide, am I going to keep my SSDI, meaning that I'm going to only earn under 1310 a month, or am I going to go, I can do this and lose my SS? Okay. So just remember you got 4 years to kind of figure that out. And that's a pretty long time. There are also impairment related work expenses. So just like an SSI, they can be applied to your gross earnings and make your income come down. So it can make you be able to earn a little bit more than that 1310 and still be able to keep your benefits. All right. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. Hopefully, you guys will receive some other training on this. But there is a new program called ABLE out there, and it's a tax savings program. Doesn't matter whether you're on SSI or SSDI, but it does allow people to save up to $15,000 per year. And that was in 2018. That may have gone up a little bit by now. But it's a way to be able to get more, when you're on SSI and you only have that $2,000 a month, $2,000 in resources that you can keep, this allows you to build up resources. So it's really important once you get, you start having income coming in and you have either SSI or SSDI coming in, to really look at either special needs trust or the Texas ABLE program in order to be able to save some money so that you're not always poor. Not going to spend any time on that. All right.
Michelle,
Yes,
so it's 9:54. So I always hate this part
I have
because
5 minutes.
pretty much because then we want to allow for
You got
questions
it.
and answers, and then we have our next presenter. So my
Yep, I am.
apologies.
It's all good. I have less than 5 minutes.
Thanks.
All right. I'm getting this down to your 45 minutes for you. Rules for collecting benefits. It's really important to keep Social Security updated about any changes to employment status, as well as address, email, and phone number. You have to report your wages. So if you start working, you have to report your wages. Incredibly important. There, you can physically take the pay stubs in, you can send them certified mail. There is now telephone and mobile app reporting is available, but you have to report them, because if not, you could get into an overpayment situation. I worked with a guy one time who was on SSDI who didn't report his wages for 20 years. Somehow they never caught him, but when he went in to retire and he wanted his SSDI or his Social Security for retiring, they gave him a bill for $30,000. So yeah, it's you gotta let them know you're working. The last thing that I want to share with you is that there is something called a BPQI. It's a benefits planning query. Every beneficiary of Social Security, SSI or SSDI, is allowed one of these a year. Always get it. Get one before you start working, and then get one every year. They might say, no, you can't have it. And you go, yes, I am legally eligible to get one of these once a year. And they will show you everything that Social Security sees in the system. So it'll see all of your wages and how much those have been reported. It'll show you how many of your trial work period months you've used. It'll show you whether they're counting something as a student earned income exclusion. So really important to monitor what is going on in the Social Security computer system so that you know it's reality. And with that, I will open it up for questions.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
A lot of information
Oh my
in a
gosh.
short time.
And this must be what, the 10th time I've heard you. And I learned something new every time. I'm happy to know that I have retained quite a bit of information.
All right.
Yay!
Yay.
Only took, 10 hours to do it. Hey, who's counting, right? And there were some great comments in the chat box and some great questions.
Okay.
So let me go ahead and get to those. And I want to, as we're like on a 800 number, your questions will be taken in the order that they were received. So I had to kind of throw a little joke in there. We answered the question that it is 60 calendar days when it comes to when you clarified something. So a great question here. When you talked about that windfall that you might get because you got denied at first and then you reapplied or whatever it was and it got worked out. You can buy food, yes, stock up on food. When you say housing payments, does that include furniture purchases? So you could buy a bed frame and mattress with the SSI windfall and that would be okay.
Yes, it would be.
Yes, it would be.
Yes.
There you go.
The absolute state of my bed.
Yes, I can imagine, Stephen. Yes, I totally understand.
I see it.
I trust you. I definitely trust you because yes, those things are very, very expensive. So as someone else had written, they denied my son for SSI because we, in quotes, exceed the monthly income they are counting. They were counting almost $6,000 a month for a property that they don't even have anymore, had to do bankruptcy to be able to qualify because of the property that was empty for almost 4 years and they were still counting it. They told me to provide the discharge of the bankruptcy. So I did, and they still denied it because they are still counting the property that I don't have anymore.
Appeal, appeal, appeal.
Yeah.
You got to keep
Appeal,
appealing.
And if you could, please email me next week, judy@familytofamilynetwork.org. I have someone that I reach out to out of Austin, and I'd like to ask them about that. Because sometimes there's like certain forms you have to submit that, Michelle, you're brilliant, but this woman's been doing it even longer.
Oh yeah, no, I don't know all of their forms.
Yeah, exactly. She may know something. So please, please email me on that, and let's see if we can, if I can help you with that.
Yeah, we spoke about the IAP. I don't know if you remember me. Like, you refer me to Anna Sparsa, the last.
Yes.
Yeah. So
wonderful.
they still paid $6,000 for an apartment, and I did what they told me. Like, I did the bankruptcy because I couldn't get rid of the property. So they told me, oh, then you have to file bankruptcy because you don't have the property, you don't want the property. So do the bankruptcy and submit the discharge paper, the discharge papers. So I did, and then I call and they still denied it, and it says, oh no, the property, it doesn't appear on the discharge papers, but nothing appears on the discharge papers.
So let me reach out to my contact in Austin, and she's a sharp cookie. So Michelle is sharp, and she's even sharper. So let me, and she's been doing this for like 30 years. So let me.
If they don't get anywhere, they could also reach out to disability rights.
Yes. But before we go that route, I want to try to reach out to this gal.
I asked them because he has they deny it for MDCP waiver list. So I have an attorney with them, but they told me they don't do SSI cases, disability right, Texas.
Oh, really?
Okay. Yeah.
That's weird. I thought they did.
Judy.
Hi, Noreen. I know.
Hi, Noreen.
I know you're
Hi,
on.
Michelle.
We're just doing questions and answers, and then we're going to take a few minute break, and then we're going to come to you. Yep.
One more thing, when she shares her information with you next week, there is I just talked with our local guy that does our benefits and stuff, and he does all of our past plans and everything. We might want to float it by Noel.
Okay. Great.
So share that with me. We'll make sure we float that issue by him.
Absolutely.
Because I think he would be helpful in at least understanding what the issue is. And next.
I will definitely do that. Thank you. And God, if I forget, to remind me. 2 heads better than 1. So another great question was asked, and I think I know the answer, sadly. How hard is it for an individual with attention deficit disorder to qualify for SSI? And then you want a copy of the agreement form. And I think you mean the room and board agreement. So Josefina, if you will email me, I will be happy to send you a copy of that room and board agreement. I'd be happy to. But yeah, ADHD is a tough one. Michelle, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that, you know, for Social Security, you have to prove that the person cannot make 1310 a month,
Mhm.
you know, and that's going to be a tough call. I mean, you could potentially do it if you have enough doctors and psychiatrists saying that the person can't work. But I think it's going to be a tough one.
Mhm. Yeah, I would agree with that. And it also might not hurt to, I don't know, is it really just ADHD? Because a lot of times with
That's
ADHD
true. There's
comes
other
other
stuff going on.
co-occurring
She
disabilities.
has anxiety and,
Right,
you
right.
know.
And that in some cases they feed off each other. I know that from
Uh,
personal experience.
Right.
And so yeah, we can talk about that as well.
Okay, I'll contact you later. Thank you,
Perfect.
Judy.
You're welcome. I did get a private message. My child is turning 18 and is going into a, you know, what they call the post-high school programs, the 18 to 22 plus programs. And so if they're in school in a post-high school program first in high school, can they still apply for SSI?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. You want to apply the month after they turn 18.
Okay. So even though they're in that school, they can, school program, they can still apply. Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
And
Okay.
Noreen's going yes too.
Yep. Perfect.
Yep.
Perfect. Let's do this.
Please apply.
Let's take a quick, it's 10:04. Let's take a quick 5-minute break, and then we have Ricky.
Judy, can you ask that one question I have, please?
Oh,
That's in the
Nedra,
chat.
I am so sorry. My apologies.
That's okay.
Hold on, Nedra.
That's okay.
Let me find it. What, Nedra, why don't you go and ask your question? I apologize.
Well, shoot. Heck, wait a minute. I got to pull it up.
Yep.
I can read it.
Right.
This is- I
The
I didn't
question
even
I
see
have
it,
was,
Nedra. That's
it's
so weird.
because I have on there where it said, I agree, Leonella, and then I asked the question.
Oh, that's right. It is very confusing on which Social Security financial plan an individual is eligible for. Thank you for sharing on this topic. As many times I have sat in presentations on the subject, it is still confusing on where I fall in to achieve these benefits.
The answer is yes. It is still confusing. You are muted, Nedra.
Okay, the question I had asked was,
Yeah, I
how
didn't.
does the person prove that their disability is problematic in a way for them to receive Social Security benefits? Because I utilize assistive technology, but what about the cost I have to pay for the devices and the cost for the regular checkup? So they every time I've ever applied for Social Security, they told me because I use the assistive devices, I'm capable of being able to work, but at the same time, they're not looking at the money I have to pay out of pocket for to have the assistive devices. You know, none of that is given to me free. I have to. My husband, God rest his soul, he's having to pay our bills on top of taking care of me in that aspect, as far as the assistive devices, the audiology exams I have to do, the hearing exams, and all of this that I have to do. It's other things that come along with me getting these assistive devices. Yes. It's not, none of it is free.
You're right. Nedra, Michelle?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, you know, they're pretty cut and dry. If you are making more than 1310 a month, or if you are capable of making more than 1310 a month, it's going to be a pretty hard sell regardless.
But can't that some of that be counted as income related work expenses as always?
It is, but not for the purpose of eligibility.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
I mean, it could be counted
I'm
later.
not the one that's working. My husband is. So.
Oh, you're not working.
No, I'm not working. My husband is footing all of the bills. He has been going over and beyond to make sure that I'm able to reach or try to obtain my goals. But right now, it's been a problem for me to even get a job in what I want to do as a direct result of proving that I'm capable of doing the job.
Well, if you're not working and you're not making that 1310, I mean, I would appeal it.
Nope.
I would definitely appeal it.
Okay.
How many times have you been denied?
More times than I cared to keep having the rejection. How about that?
Nedra,
Yes, ma'am.
again, my gal in Austin, you give me your social, your date of birth, and she looks into it for me. So if you write out everything that has happened to you, take a couple paragraphs, give me the highlights of it. I will forward that to her to see what she says.
Thank you, Judy.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, Nedra. Leonella has a
Okay.
question, and then we're going to take a quick break. And Noreen said, start off with your BPQY. Call the 800
Okay,
number.
what's that?
That's the benefits, the query that you're allowed
Benefits
to ask
planning
for
query.
1 year, benefits
Yeah.
planning query. So you call
Okay.
up the 800 number and you'll be
Okay.
placed on hold for 45 minutes. So
If you don't have SSI or SSDI now, it won't show anything. It's only
Oh.
once you get benefits.
okay,
Yeah, because I don't have neither one. I don't
Oh,
have
that's
none of
No, then it won't work right now. It's like if you have benefits, you want to get one and then you want to get one every year.
okay. So Leonella has a question and then Wendy has a question and then we need to take a break.
I guess my question will be the waivers, the Medicaid waivers, how they affect into these. Because I know with my son, we were told if you get a waiver, you'll be able to qualify because they don't count, they would not count your son's income.
If you have a waiver, you automatically are qualified for Medicaid. But I'm not sure what that has to do with income. They're still going to count the income on SSI, and they're still going to take the dollar for every $2 he makes. But he's going to be able to keep his Medicaid regardless because of that waiver.
Leonella, if you want to, again, take a couple paragraphs. Oh, Noreen wrote, the waiver allows a person to receive a waiver from the parent's income if the person
Oh, okay. I was thinking
is
an
under
adult.
the age of 18.
Okay, yeah. Either way, we waited years and years for my son to qualify for the waiver.
Mm.
And we were told he's not disabled enough.
Oh.
How do they, God, that infuriates me.
Ugh.
Leonella, if you want to, again, take a couple paragraphs and I will forward it to this gal.
Thank you.
And then Noreen mentioned use the children's Medicaid buy-in. Great point, Noreen. Wendy.
Mine's kind of very similar to that, where my kiddo has autism and many times he's not disabled enough in areas. But Michelle, you said something in the presentation that they could go back and look at school records and say, how does that work? Because I have an issue with sometimes feeling like they pass my kid just to pass. He's in a gen ed classroom and they say he's doing great. It looks great on paper, but functionality wise outside, that's my biggest worry, is that he's going to graduate and we're going to find out it's not so great on paper.
And again, right now they're going to be basing it off of your income. When he turns 18, they're going to be basing it off of his income. When somebody's under 18, they're basically looking of, whether they're keeping up with their peers or not. So if he has grades in line with his peers, it's going to be a pretty hard sell. But certainly the more evaluations that you can get with, psychiatrists, psychologists, doctors who say that, he really does have limitations, the better off you're going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And Wendy, I'm happy to, again, this gal is amazing. So she knows the work at Family to Family Network that we do is so important. And I email her all the time and she's just amazing. Michelle, absolutely, Wendy, anytime. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your morning, guys. Thank you.
We will.
Thank you, Michelle.
It is 10:12, not to be too exact, but let's take about 5 minutes and then we're going to come back with the amazing story of Ricky Broussard and employment specialist and just a great gal, Noreen Jalloway Gill. So we'll be back in just a few minutes.